Stay tuned for a German Pilsner brew day on my electric garage home brewery. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm John, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for tuning in. This channel is all about people who want to learn how to homebrew, build home breweries, and connecting with fellow home brewers. You'll see videos from my brew days, brewery builds, equipment reviews, and more. Consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Today I'm using a German Pilsner recipe that can be found in a book our good friends over at the Beer Junkies recently published. This book is an excellent resource that covers how to choose malts, hops, create water profiles, beer recipes, and much more. I'll post a link in the description. In this video, I'll walk you through how I brewed this German Pilsner on my electric garage home brewery and also highlight a new addition to my brewery that made measuring salts and hops super easy. Let's get started with this brew day.
I started this brew day the day before by producing 22 gallons of reverse osmosis water for my mash and sparge water. This process took about 9 to 10 hours on my Buckeye RO system. Here are the ingredients I'm using. For the grain bill, I'm using 18 pounds of German Weyermann 2-row. I'll add 3 hop additions during the 90-minute boil. At the 60-minute mark, I will add 4.4 ounces of Hallertau Mittelfruh for 31 IBUs of bittering. At 15 minutes, I'll add 1.5 ounces of Hallertau Mittelfruh for 5.2 more IBUs of bittering. At 0 minutes, I'll add 1 more ounce of Hallertau Mittelfruh to add flowery and herbal notes. I plan to split this batch into 2 7.5 gallon fermenters. I'll use Wyeast Pilsner 2007 for the first fermenter and Wyeast for the second fermenter. I use a software called BeerSmith to help me keep track of my recipes. If you haven't used BeerSmith yet, I recommend it. It's helpful in fine-tuning recipes and staying on top of your brew day. With my Herm system, I start by heating strike water in the boil kettle and then transfer the water into my mash tun using a Blickman Riptide pump. I generally set my strike water to 160 to 165 degrees, depending on the temperature of the grain and the mash temperature I'm shooting for. Once my strike water is in the mash tun, I add the grains and then mash in by stirring the grains in the kettle to get rid of all the dough balls. After I mix in the grain, I set up my recirculating system by configuring the hoses to pull mash water through the bottom of the mash tun, run it through the heat exchanger inside the HLT, and then dump the mash water back into the mash tun through a colander at the top of the tun. This process is super efficient and keeps my temperatures exactly where I want them during the mashing process. And now for the new addition to my brewery. If you saw from a recent video, I had trouble measuring salts accurately with my old scale. This $10 scale can measure down to the hundredths of a gram. So far, the scale is a great upgrade to my brewery. I'll post a link in the description if you're looking for an inexpensive scale. Since I'm using RO water, I plan on adding the following salts to my mash and sparge water for targeting pH levels and taste. I'm shooting for 50 parts per million of calcium, 5 parts per million of sodium, 105 parts per million of sulfates, and 45 parts per million of chloride. The main idea here is to lower the mash pH, which is important for mash enzymes that convert starches into sugar. I also want to point out RO water and adjusting water profiles is not a must when homebrewing, but it does offer another way of fine-tuning your beer recipes to exactly what you're shooting for. After mashing for an hour, I transferred my wort into my boil kettle, bumped up my HLT kettle to 170 degrees, and started batch sparging with the second round of salts. I generally let my batch sparge go for 20 minutes and then transfer the wort into my boil kettle. Once I collected all the mash in the boil kettle, I ramped up the temperature to a boil and started adding my hop additions. My buddy stopped by and helped me add the hops to the boil. This is the first time I used Mittelfruh, and man, these hops smell great. Quick tip, don't do what we did with this boil over. Make sure to turn down the temperature of your boil when adding your first round of hops and get ready to stir for the hop break. After the boil over mess, the rest of the boil went pretty smoothly. I added the hops, chilled it down to pitching temperatures with my counterflow chiller, transferred it to my bucket fermenters, and then added both of the yeasts. I then set up my glycol system by connecting the glycol lines, added the temperature sensors, and set the temperature setting for the fermenter. After 10 days, I was within a few points of my final gravity reading, so I started my diacetyl rest. I let the fermenter rise a few degrees and then set the temperature to 60 degrees for a week.
That wraps up this brew day. All that's left is to cold crash this German Pilsner and let it lager for 8 to 12 weeks. I'll make sure to post a follow-up video when it's done. Consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. See you next time.